excited to come out and play. Breeze is sublime. Look at us, we are so blind. And what's the last? We are one with everything. Yeah. Shades of gray play peekaboo. Skies of a March and April threatening to undo months of bitterness. As rain trickles down its skin. Oh, breeze is sublime. Look at us, 'cause we are so blind. At what's the last? We are one with everything. Yeah. As daffodils sway to and fro, and cherry blossoms cascade into vast pink umbrellas unfold their love, flapping in winter's last hours. We are so blind and so blessed. Look at us, we are blessed. We are one with everything. Yeah, alright. Ooh, breeze is
Thank you very much, Joe Lynn.
A revolution against big government.
He has erected a multitude of new offices and has sent hither swarms of officials to harass our people and eat out their substance.
George III and his bureaucrats taxed and controlled their lives until the people said, enough.
Live from Los Angeles, I'm Pamela Wistrom on Second Thought with William J. Wagner.
Thank you very much. It's been a rush today to get here today. It's a warm day here, and that's why I'm looking a little discombobulated. My guest here with me is Amelia Duran.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Can you all hear her out there in the audience? Could you hear her okay?
Not too well.
Let's bring up her mic so you can hear her. It's a live show as we try to take back America one child at a time, one mortgage fraudulent foreclosure at a time. It's warm in Los Angeles too, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
A little cooler here in Santa Barbara, huh?
A little bit.
Just a little bit. Okay, yeah, it's been a really warm day. Amelia, you had a child name.
I have a child named Aiden.
Aiden. And Aiden's probably watching us right now in the green room.
Hi, Aiden.
Hi, Aiden, your mom's right here. Something happened. You had this child what year? What?
Aiden was born in 2011.
Aiden was born in 2011, and how long did you have before Child Destruction Services came in and grabbed your child?
He was 11 months old.
11 months old. And what was the pretense they used, Amy, to steal your child, kidnap your child?
Well, the police came into our home.
The police?
Yes, they came to our home. My son was sleeping. It was about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the evening. I had my door open. I had one of those metal screen doors.
Yeah.
And the police came to my door and asked if they could come in. And I told them, it wasn't a good time, that my son was sleeping. I asked them if they had a warrant. They said no. And I said I respectfully decline. And they came in anyways. They said they smelled gas in my home, and they came in anyways.
So the pretense was they're coming in your home on an emergency because they smell gas.
Gas, yeah.
Was that from their own flatulation or from the CPS flatulation?
Well,
I mean, we laugh now, but I know it
It's
wasn't
not
funny at the time.
It's not funny, it was a horrific experience, William.
So they get in your house.
I was actually expecting Aiden's father to fly in from Texas, and I was preparing dinner, a nice dinner for him. He had just gotten his federal licensing to inspect airplanes, so he was flying home from his training. And so I was definitely not expecting the police. Yeah, they came in and they searched my home for at least a half an hour on the pretense that they smelled gas.
And did they find any gas leaks?
No gas leaks, and they never evacuated my son and I out of the home.
So they weren't really concerned about gas explosion because they didn't evacuate you.
No.
So this was a lie, a pretense, a deception by our tax-paid-for police officers. In what city was this?
This was in Porterville, California. I had only lived there for 8 months. I rented a home there. I was planning to purchase the home. Obviously, that did not occur, but they continued to search my home. They found nothing in my home. I did have a prescription for anxiety medication that was unopened on my counter from the pharmacy. I was cooking a chicken, like a whole chicken, like a chicken.
Right.
And it's a Martha Stewart recipe. I'm sure some of you know about it, but I was trying to cook a nice dinner for his dad. I used half of the bottle of wine to marinate the chicken and put it in the fridge, and I preheated the oven. The oven was on. It was not the gas.
So now they find no gas leak. Now what is the next step they take? Now they've illegally entered your house without a warrant on an emergency pretense that they smell gas. Now what do they do?
Well, they called the fire department. The fire department tested the levels of the gas in the home. There were 0 levels detected and there were no gas leaks detected. But someone came, a woman officer came, CPS, and they took my son. I tested for drugs and alcohol.
Wait a minute, how did you test for drugs and alcohol? You're still in your home.
Yeah, they removed me from my home and they removed my son. They took me to the local hospital that was 2 blocks away, and I did a blood test.
In Porterville?
In Porterville, at the Porterville Hospital, or it was, what is a lab? It's a testing lab.
Yeah, a testing lab. So now they got to prove there's something wrong with you to justify their illegal entry, to justify their illegal taking of your son, Aiden.
Yeah.
And the test came out what? Positive, negative, or in between?
Negative for anything.
Negative for
I was
anything?
within the legal limit for...
Because you hadn't taken your anxiety medication yet. It was still unopened.
Yeah.
But now you had anxiety. You didn't have it before, but now you had anxiety. Police coming in, someone steals your children, you're forcibly taken to the hospital and forced to either take these tests, or what was the alternative if you refused the test?
Well, I obviously would go to jail, and I thought at some point, well, I'll take the test. I cooperated. I did not resist arrest. I did not resist taking the test. they still proceeded to take myself into a holding cell where they held me, and my son sat in his car seat right outside of the bars and waited for a social worker to come and pick him up.
Oh my God. So you're inside the jail cell. And your son is sitting in his car seat outside the jail cell. He can see through the bars, but he can't reach you, and you can't comfort him.
For
I want to
hours.
ask you people out there, does this sound like torture, American style? I'm just asking, does this sound like torture of a child? Wow. So he's outside, you're inside the jail cell. You haven't committed any crime.
No.
You don't know what the test results are yet, do you?
Well, I knew.
You knew, but
Yeah.
they didn't know yet.
No.
So they're just holding you just in case you test dirty.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, your husband's flying back, and what does he find?
He's still not aware. I wasn't allowed. I was never read my rights. I wasn't allowed to make a phone call. From there, the social worker came and picked up Aiden and took him away
Oh my God.
in front of me. I'm watching this.
And what does Aiden do?
He was relatively calm. You know, he wasn't
He wasn't
in
aware
any
of what was
discomfort.
going
It was
on.
he was napping through
Oh.
most of this, fortunately. But he calls it baby jail. He remembers. He calls it baby jail. But and I just figured, okay, well, they're gonna let me go, and Aiden's dad will go and pick him up. That wasn't what happened, folks. What happened was, I was transferred to the Bob Wiley Detention Center.
Which is where?
I have no idea. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Wow. So you're now taken prisoner, and you've done nothing wrong. All you've done is cook a chicken dinner, waiting for Aiden's father to arrive home again. Now you're taken to the detention center, a more permanent facility. And how long were you there?
I was there for a total of 5 days. On the second day, I had asked to, when I was going to get a phone call and be able to go before a judge, the jail
Bail?
guards,
Post-bail?
the guard there said, "You're not getting out. You've already been charged. You're serving 12 years for felony child endangerment." And
Wow, and you haven't seen a judge yet. You haven't seen a judge. You haven't even had a preliminary hearing.
no,
And the guard tells you you're going to serve 12 years.
yeah.
Is this, are we still in America? Was this in California?
This was at the Bob Wiley Detention Center
In California.
Yeah.
Not too far from Porterville.
Yeah. And I believed her because I didn't understand why I was already in a woman's detention center jail. I fainted. They put me in, I think they took me to the infirmary. I tested again. They made me test again for drugs or what have you. They put me in a holding cell, a white padded cell room for an additional 3 days, where those 3 days I did not know where my son was. I did not know if it was night or day, and I thought I was serving 12 years.
Without ever seeing a judge.
Never seeing a
Never
judge.
seeing an attorney.
Oh, and prior,
You
wait,
never saw an attorney at this
I
point?
never saw an attorney, but I did get one visitor. I did get one
Who was the
visitor.
visitor?
On the second day. This was what actually made me faint and have to go into the white padded cell room. DCFS social worker came to the prison and tried to get me to sign papers releasing all rights to my son. Her name was Jennifer Monet. She's a social worker there in Porterville, California.
And they're trying to trick you now into releasing all rights to your son because you believe you're doing 12 years in prison and you still don't know why you should do 12 years. And your only visitor is somebody that says, here's a piece of paper, sign this or else.
Yeah, and I stood up, I said no, and then that's when I fainted. They took me to the infirmary where I think I was again tested, and then I was put into a room with no windows by myself, white padded cell.
This was what month?
This was in January or February. approximately, guys, I don't want to
It's a
make.
bad memory.
It's a bad memory, so I don't have my notes in front of me. So, but it was after the Christmas holidays.
After the Christmas holidays, you're now told you're going to serve 12 years. I wonder, are we in Zimbabwe or are we in California? Are we still in the United? Do we have a United States? Is there any law? Is there any procedures? Do you think some procedures were violated here?
Most definitely.
Were some laws violated?
Most definitely.
But you didn't know that at the time. This must have been horrendously stressful.
All I could think about was my son. That was all I could think about.
Eden.
Where was my son? Who had my son? Why were these people doing this? My mind was just spinning.
Meanwhile, Aiden's father was where? At some point, he must have arrived home. What did he tell
Well,
you?
he flew in and they informed him of what had occurred. He picked up Aiden from social services and they reluctantly released him to him on the grounds that he file for full custody of Aiden and never allow him to see me again.
Oh my God!
I have no criminal history.
You've never been arrested for DUI?
At one time in 2000, it's been.
2000. That's 15 years ago.
It's not even on my record anymore. It's been expunged.
So they couldn't have known about that.
No.
So you've got a clean record, and they're telling you you're serving 12 years for child endangerment?
Felony child endangerment.
Felony child endangerment. For what? Cooking a chicken? Oh my God. God have mercy on his people. This could be any mother in any town, USA. When do we stop these criminals that call themselves social workers from CPS? I call them family destruction officers because that's what they do. Even if people separate and mom and dad don't get along, they work to try to create enemies between them, make them hate each other, and create as much divisiveness so they will fight. And did you reach a point where you and the dad had to fight in court over custody? What happened?
I was released on the 5th day at midnight in my pajamas, my pajama pants and a t-shirt. No
That
shoes.
they gave you?
No.
These were the same pajamas you
I
were
was
wearing
when they picked
when
me
they
up.
picked you up
Yeah.
at your house.
Yeah, just.
Well, you should have been safe from false arrest.
Yeah, you think in your home, your sanctuary, your place. You know, you're dressed casually at home. I had no shoes on, folks. They released me with a cell phone, my keys. The cell phone had a dead battery, with no phone call. Still no phone call. At midnight on the 5th night.
So there's no law that says they have to let you make a phone call. The father of Aiden did not know where you were till late the first day of your arrest?
Yeah, at this point, he still didn't know where I was.
And he picked up Aiden after what, 1 day or half a day?
On the 3rd day.
On the 3rd day?
Yeah, they finally let him go. He
So-
had flown in that night when it occurred, but he couldn't get CPS to release him.
In the middle of the night? Of course not, because they're 9 to 5 kidnappers. These kidnappers only work 9 to 5 with your tax dollars paying their salary. This is a horrific story. Someone ought to get sued. I mean, if we really had law under the Constitution, what these judges take an oath to uphold, someone should have to pay for the trauma, not only of Aiden, but if Amy's sitting here next to me, live here in the studio, this hot Wednesday in September. We're looking back here, how many years?
Well,
3 years?
I went through almost 4 years of children's court fighting for my son. He's now 4 years old. I have him back.
Well, good for them. Yay.
Never give up.
Now, even if they're swallowing you, grab the bird by the neck that's swallowing you before you go down the gullet.
Yeah.
So, Dad of Aiden gets Aiden. That must have been of some comfort to Aiden and Dad. How long did he have him before you find yourself in family court?
Well, he had taken Aiden. At the time we had a boat in Marina Del Rey that slept 4, the little mini kitchen and a shower and all that stuff. So we got the heck out of that town. You know, we moved, I think, overnight. He moved.
You realize Porterville was a bad place to be.
Porterville is very bad, very corrupt, very, very bad. It deeply concerns me about what goes on in child services in that area and with the police. Now, out of children's court.
Wait, we skipped a couple of years here. We skipped
I want to get to the good stuff.
All right, well, just briefly, let's go over. So you flee for your life and for your family safety from Porterville, where you had moved innocently thinking it's just another American town and I can live here safely. I'll rent a house and I'll buy the house. And all of a sudden, you have to flee overnight. You, Aiden's father, you flee, you leave the town. So you leave that county jurisdiction, and then how do they drag you back in?
Well, Aiden had an accident. Well, they actually were calling me. CPS was calling me on the phone telling me I still had to complete a family case plan.
What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You're released. You tested negative twice.
Uh-huh.
First time you willingly accepted it. The second time you had no choice. You were in custody.
Yeah.
And you tested negative both times. And now they're telling you you have to complete a case plan.
Yes.
And you're not even in their county.
I'm not even in their county, and I never went before a judge.
Who was this
There
SOB?
was no criminal charges pressed against me. The DA dropped charges due to lack of evidence.
Lack of evidence
lack
of what? You didn't do anything but cook a chicken.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the DA had enough smarts to realize I can't win this case. If she fights me and I try to criminalize her, I'm going to look like a fool. So he drops the case, but CPS says, oh, no, 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 no. You've got to complete a case plan.
A family case plan.
Which would give them authority to mess with you and keep finding you in default and default and default. This is what they do with criminals, people. They'll give them probation, let them out of jail, and then they'll say, aha, you missed your drug test. You didn't show up. So we're going to charge you with new charges. And now they got new charges that you didn't complete the plan. That's what they were trying to do, trick her. What was the name of this criminal working for CPS that called you and told you you had to complete a case plan?
Her name was Jennifer Manet.
Jennifer Manet of Porterville, right?
Porterville, yeah.
And is she still employed there?
To my knowledge, yes, she's still employed.
Shouldn't she be fired?
No, until this day,
She shouldn't be fired?
I still cannot obtain my records of where my son was during those 5 days.
They won't tell you.
No.
So are you suing them?
I'm suing the police.
You're suing the police, but not the CPS workers.
Yeah.
I think Jennifer Manet needs to be in prison.
Well, I have become very savvy at the law, and I am studying. I'm hoping to at least get my paralegal license in the near future.
Yeah, which wasn't something you were planning on doing 4 years ago when you had baby Aiden.
No.
You weren't planning to do that, were you?
No.
Now, it's become people, almost everybody in America, to defend yourself against the criminals in office, you have to become a paralegal or a lawyer because the lawyers sell you out. The courts don't help you. They help the lawyers take money from you. And the quickest way to get an extension if you're not ready for court is say, oh, Your Honor, I need more time. I got to find a good attorney. Well, there is no good attorney. That's the clicker. There is no such thing as a good attorney. So they'll give you another 30, 60 days, hoping you'll pay some member of their bar-carded club of criminals. And I'm not exaggerating. It's a private club of sanctioned criminals that we, the people, have allowed to capture our legal system. Not one of them. You must know this by now.
Well, when
Not one of them has a license from the state.
When it becomes a crime, when it comes to a crime, to report crime that's going on, when that's criminalized, folks, We have a system run by criminals.
That's what it is. That's what I've been saying for years. We have criminals in office. We have judges who are in office that are outright criminals. In fact, we have judges' wives. Let me just divulge something here. Just happened a day ago. A KCOY anchor reporter, longtime reporter for our local, I think it's CBS, I'm not sure if they're CBS or CNN or what they are, KCOY, local TV station. Paula Lopez Ochoa, who, isn't she married to Judge? Isn't she the wife of a Santa Barbara judge? Was stopped by the police driving the wrong way on a divided freeway. Isn't that the fact? And she objected. Not only is she drunk, intoxicated, but she's going the wrong way on a divided freeway. And one guy who commented on a report said, "You came within 4 feet of slamming into my brother and his wife and kids' family." Imagine driving down the freeway and seeing the judge's wife coming at you head on because she's carousing and she's drunk. Is something wrong with our judges? Is something wrong with their wives that they think they can get away with this? Now, when I heard this, I called one of the officers that talks to me off camera. I can't give you his name, obviously. And he said, this was not the first time Paula Lopez has been pulled over. So my question is, why does a judge's wife get only a $5,000 bail when she's taken to jail? And she's booked at 1 a.m. Apparently she was pulled over at 8 p.m. going the wrong way, which is, getting close to sunset, going the wrong way. But she's not booked till 1 a.m. And the bail said at only $5,000, which means she can pop out a credit card, put a $500 bail down to the bail bondsman, and she's out. But suddenly it appears, come on, Paula Lopez, come on my show. I want to interview you, the anchor of KCOY. How did it get reduced to your own recognizance at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and she goes home? Judge, I'm talking to you, judge of the Santa Barbara court. Did you make a phone call? I want to know, Judge. William Wagner wants to know. We the people want to know, did you make a call to the sheriff's station and say, let my wife out on her own recognizance, I'll take care of it? Really? Is this equal justice under law? Let me ask you, if William Wagner was caught going the wrong way on a divided freeway, head on into traffic, whether I was sober or drunk, do you think my bail would be $5,000 reduced to own recognizance? Do you think if, Amy, you were arrested and spent 5 days in the detention center, you weren't drunk, you were at home, you were doing just what a mother and a wife should be doing, and she's dragged through all this crap? People, it is criminals in office. And the last time we had an election for judges, I think there were 6 or 7 judgeships out of 12 or 14 in Santa Barbara County. None of them, zero, goose egg, were contested. That's right. 6 or 7 judges, and nobody ran against any of them. Any of them. Don't we have a Judge Ochoa? Isn't he in charge of drug court and dependency court? Alcohol, drug dependency. Isn't he the guy that, isn't there a Judge Ochoa? Now, I'm not saying Judge Ochoa is married to Paula Lopez Ochoa. I'm not saying that. I haven't seen a marriage license. I'm not making that claim. I'm just thinking, is there unequal enforcement of the law going on right here in Santa Barbara County, this all-American town, in this all-American county? No, we don't steal children away from good moms and dads here, do we? Maybe we should go talk to Denise Jones's daughter, who took one Vicodin. She was going to go cold turkey and give birth with no drugs, and at the last minute she said, oh, this is really painful. Took one Vicodin, and he said, you're an unfit mother, we're taking your baby. She never got her healthy, and the baby was born completely healthy. beautiful, blue-eyed baby boy. Never got the child back. Judge Ochoa, Judge Garcia, Judge Herman, the schmuck judge. Now, why do I call Herman the schmuck judge? That's because I went and asked for your oath of office, Judge Herman, and Marlena Vlich could not show me your oath of office. You were practicing as a judge without a license on file because I demanded it. And Marlena Vlich then changed jobs because I got that all on tape and it's on YouTube. We're demanding, and she tries to keep us out of the elections office. So I don't want to be. This is a private, no, it's not a private office. It's a public office. I had every right to videotape you not producing Judge Schmuck Herman's oath of office. And then suddenly, Herman, who's married to this other female judge who sits down in Santa Barbara, he gets promoted to some state big, high, mucky-wucky judge consul. There's an agenda going on here.
Well,
and the people
I
don't even get to vote for the judges. They're automatically reelected. And getting back to that issue, I want to get to your story, but I just want to remind people, I am not an ignorant host of this show. I know the criminal record of these judges. We had a judge, let's see, he got off kind of scot-free. Was his name Michael something? He got off scot-free. He was doing cocaine, I believe, on the bench with his bailiff in chambers in Santa Maria. Oh, gee, I'm not supposed to remember that anymore. That was 20 years ago. He only got 6 months in jail. 6 months in jail, and I just watched him the week before sentence a regular guy who worked in construction or something to 6 or 7 years for possession of the same stuff. This Michael guy, who got off not completely scot-free, but this Michael guy who got off almost scot-free, got 6 months in jail and 6 months on the Huber Law, where he goes to jail at night and gets to go work at a law firm in the daytime. And now he got his bar card back. Let me ask you, if a doctor was doing surgery, brain surgery or heart surgery, and they found him snorting cocaine while doing heart surgery, and the state took his license away, do you think they would ever give him his license back, Amelia?
No.
No way. No way. A doctor caught doing drugs while doing an operation. And here you had a sitting judge.
These are our children and families.
And they're destroying them. And
These
we
are
got drug addicts
these
on
are
the bench.
children and families. And my son did 4 years. 4 years, 2 years in foster care, and almost 4 years he was at jurisdiction of the courts.
Is that right, people?
And I am highly aware of the fraud that's going on. I've had to become very, knowledgeable on, they are all lying in the courtrooms. Penalty of perjury means nothing, especially in children's court. At the bottom of your document, it does not say by the penalty of perjury. It says nothing. In children's court, there is no penalty of perjury. So they are all lying to substantiate your case, even if they do not have enough to substantiate your case. They will, I call it cut, paste, and copy other cases in to your case that have won and been substantiated in order to make your child a part of the system.
This is absolutely true, people. I know what she says sounds crazy. They literally do. They cut and paste things from other cases, which were probably fraudulent in those cases too. And they put it in your case and put it in front of the judge. The judge looks at it, well, the social worker says, Amy, that you did this and you did that. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to see, don't bring your witnesses in here. This is what I'm making my decision in, and you will only get to see your kid once every month for 2 hours at the detention center, children's detention center, and you will be watched, and they will watch you. Then when you go in there, you see this gal sitting there writing notes about you, don't you? And you don't know what she's doing. You're just playing with your little infant.
Oh yeah, there's a dependency court investigator. They'll get any. They'll find as much dirt. If they can't find anything on you, they will make it up.
She didn't bring a bottle of water for the baby. The baby got thirsty, so they write in the notes, inappropriate mothering. or inappropriate fathering, didn't bring treats for the kid to eat, blah, blah, blah. But you just let the parent take the kid to McDonald's or wherever. He'd take care of the child. But they lie, and so the more you participate in their system, the more they screw you down with and say, oh, she had this visit, and that visit, right? Mm-hmm. And she did this wrong, and that wrong. So the judge looks, oh, we got a trail of history of you being an inappropriate mother, documented by these good social criminals.
And even, even if you are innocent, there is an epidemic. And when I say epidemic, I mean this because I advocate for quite a few parents now that are in these situations. And the public defenders will purposely withhold evidence, documentation. We have an epidemic in California, the state of California. We have an epidemic of violations of the Bradley disclosure law, which is, in order for you to get, you must have due process, folks. You've got to have due process. You've got to fight, these public defenders that are violating the Brady disclosure law. Where are the attorney generals when this stuff is happening?
They're busy running for U.S. Senate, so they don't have to deal with these issues or foreclosure issues. Camilla Harris, where the hell were you when the system was screwing Amelia Duran, or screwing the daughter of Denise Jones, or any of the 100,000 other innocent victims that had their children illegally kidnapped under color of law? And the reason I asked for, what's her name, Jennifer
Monet.
Monet's name.
Yeah, social worker.
I believe we need to go after these people.
We do.
At some point, we the people say it's enough, we're not going to put up with this, and just because 15 years have gone by and you've retired and you've got your pension, we're going to come after you. We're going to arrest you. You're going to be put in jail for the crimes you did under color of law and fraud. And that's why I ask for these names. Because if you don't put it out on this record, I may be dead, you may be dead. But there will be somebody, and they will be coming after you because we put your name out there, Jennifer Monet. Jennifer Monet of Porterville. You are not going to get away free. You're not going to walk off. There's a gal here, Amy, Denise Jones would probably remember her name. It escapes my name, but we caught her on tape one day. And right here in Santa Maria, she'd just been in family court screwing over Denise Jones's daughter, lying to the court. And I got her on tape. Laura Lee seems to come to mind. Laura Lee. We caught you, Laura Lee, on camera. And I asked Laura Lee, are you the one that just went into court and testified and lied? Did you do that? Do you work for the county? And she turned away and she walked as fast as she could walk without actually running back into her CPS building right here in Santa Maria. And she hid from us. She did not want to answer any questions because she could not stand in front of my camera and say, I told no lies. Everything I said was the God gospel truth. She knew she had lied, and she ran for our camera. And that's on YouTube. And then, and you know what they did? I can't remember Denise Jones' daughter's name either. It's been years. But she had a good man, and they were getting married. They had this baby. And they went to them, and they said, you make Mr. WAGENER take that YouTube clip down, or we're going to criminalize you. We're going to put you in jail, and we're going to make it horrifically bad, and you're still not going to get your child back. They came to me and told me what they had said, and said, well, do you want to take it down? I said, no. I said, I think their name was Cassidy and Jason, but I can't be absolutely sure because I'd have to go look. But if you put in William WAGENER, Cassidy and Jason, kidnapping, Laura Lee, you'll pull up that clip. But they then found a way, they made a way to criminalize Jason, who was a cook. He was just a hard-working cook. His mother or grandmother was dying at the time. He was going through all kinds of personal, and then he's got to deal with these criminals in office. And I still remember that. I remember another case up in San Jose they just criminalized the people up there and just criminalized them. And the guy just did a short interview with me, and he said, you know, the mom wasn't doing drugs. I was doing the drugs. And I didn't have custody of the kid, but they took the kid away from the mom. And we had split up. And I was sending her child support. They punished her for my drug possession. And they made that video clip disappear because I found out he was getting the drugs from a cop married to a CPS worker up in San Jose. And that YouTube clip just disappeared. I didn't remove it. It just disappeared. That's the kind of thing that goes on continually and nonstop. It goes on nonstop. So when Amy says these are, how'd you put it? Criminals in office?
Well, when it becomes a crime to
Report
crime and fraudulent activity that's going on your case or in the court, when that becomes a crime, then you have criminals running the system. I mean, they're encouraged to lie, folks. They're encouraged to print perjury on court record.
And it happens every single day in every, quote, family court in every county of 3,000 counties and parishes in America. And they won't let people like me with cameras in those courtrooms because they don't want us documenting the perjury to show it to you. In fact, I was at the Santa Maria just videotaping them dragging these kids. And they were pretty rough on these kids, dragging them in. Little kids, 4 or 5 years, just run, hurry up, kid. And they drag them in there, let the judge see them privately. Then they put on the case against the parent, be it someone like Amy or a dad. And they didn't want me taping them just going into their private. They don't have these courts where the regular courts are anymore. They're in Colorado and California, they're separating them. So the child dependency court is done in a separate building. So you won't, it's called Edelman's in
Edelman's Children's Court.
Children's Court in LA.
And,
it's a horrible place.
And it used to be in the past that, you know, for the most part, the mothers would get custody of the children. Nowadays, you know, once you become the targeted parents, the courts do not switch their direction. In fact, they will fabricate lies and do whatever it is they have to do to drag you further and further down that road.
So how did you lose your kid? Now, you fled Porterville. Get back to your story. I'm sorry I went off.
We digress.
We digressed. This Paula Lopez, anchor for KCOY locally here in Santa Maria. Anchor for many years. Paula Lopez arrested for drunk driving, not proved yet. So it's alleged drunk driving. But come on, driving the wrong way on a one-way freeway, a divided freeway, come on. I really would like to interview the cops that have arrested her prior to this. But they're telling me
when we have these
they
abuses,
can't do that without authority above.
When we have these abuses of the system, it begs the question: do we have a justice system?
Yeah, do we have a justice? No, we don't. I think the answer is clear. We do not have a justice. We have an injustice system that serves only the lawyers, the social workers, what I call the Nazis. And a lot of these, you may have noticed this. I didn't ask you. Now I'll ask you. A lot of these CPS workers tend to be kind of gay and effeminate, lesbians, and they hate heterosexuals. They call us breeders. Mm-hmm. Have you ever come across that?
Well, I haven't experienced that as much.
Well, good. Good. I'm glad you didn't experience it.
It doesn't bother me that much.
There's a place down in Texas called St. Angelo. They kidnapped 400 children on a single day. On a single day, at a single place. Trying to prove wrongdoing. And now it's like 4, 5, 6 years later, out of 400 kids, maybe they were justified in one single case. 1 out of 400. You taxpayers paid for that. So going back to your case, you're out of Porterville. Jennifer Monet, the criminal who works in CPS calls you and says, you've got to complete a case plan.
Yeah,
Did you ever
have to
agree?
comply.
Did you ever agree to complete
Under
a case?
duress. I agreed.
You signed
under,
something under duress
duress
while you were
and
in jail?
Yes, I signed it under duress. No, I didn't sign anything in jail.
Oh,
I never.
after jail.
This was after jail.
And you left Porterville?
Yes, because I was released at midnight.
In your pajamas?
In my pajamas. I was very, very lucky, folks. I got picked up by a very nice couple that drove me home many, many miles from where I lived in Porterville. I don't know if some of your listeners are familiar with where the Bob Wiley Detention Center is actually located.
Only if they've been there would they be. The average American
Well,
would have
if
no
you
clue.
can look it up, it's rather far. It's in the middle of nowhere.
On purpose.
And I have to ask myself, why did they release me at midnight?
They
No
should
money.
be required to at least take you back to where they arrested you. They should not
people
dump
die.
you.
People die. There was a woman that was released at midnight from a detention facility and was murdered and raped at a Malibu bus stop in Malibu.
In Malibu, which is a pretty upscale place, and she still got raped and murdered. Yeah, that's another issue.
I'm just
That's
saying,
a different issue.
what were they expecting when you released somebody that late
They
at
don't
night,
care.
that hour, a woman in the middle of nowhere?
I think that should be done to every judge. Every judge should spend 3 or 4 days in jail and then be released at midnight in their pajamas in a place they don't know where they're at, with no cell phone, no money, and no phone call to call anybody. If every judge was put through that, I think the system would change really quick. It would change really quick.
Yeah.
Did Paula Lopez Ochoa, was she released? Was she released in a strange place at the Wiley Center? No, she was released after someone was ready to take care of her, make sure her needs were met. This is not equal justice under the law, people. So this Jennifer nutcase criminal who works at the Porterville CPS, this nutcase kidnapper calls you and says, hey,
You're still required.
you're still required. What did you do? Did you argue with her and say, no, I'm out of your jurisdiction, I'm done with you, goodbye?
Yes, I told her we had relocated.
And what did she say?
I did try to go before a judge while I was there in Porterville before I left, to no avail.
That was a mistake, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's
Hindsight.
Actually, yeah,
Hindsight.
hindsight.
Don't give them jurisdiction.
Yeah,
Don't walk into their kangaroo court and give them jurisdiction, and you did. So now they claim they have
well,
jurisdiction.
no, I never even went into the kangaroo court. My case opened. My son had an accident on our family boat while we were staying on the boat. We stayed there temporarily while we looked for a new home.
How long were you on
obviously,
the boat before the accident
a
happened?
few weeks.
But
few
you wouldn't have
weeks,
been
few
there
weeks.
if they hadn't done this to you.
I wouldn't have been staying on the boat at all,
so-
and Aiden was quite small.
So now what happens?
Aiden has an accident. We take him into the emergency room. The doctor says it's okay. He's okay. He had no abuse. It's all documented. But they took Aiden into foster care, and Los Angeles County opened their own investigation.
Oh, God. These people don't relent. They talk to each other. Once they open a case on you, this happened with, what's her name, Miss Powers, who was just given, at the time I was interviewing her, this was, I don't know how many years ago this was, 6 years ago, 8 years ago. At the time, she just had a baby girl, her only baby girl. And she had had 2 sons that were now at that time 10 or 11. Now they'd be almost adults. And she had divorced the father of the 2 boys, and he had full custody, and the court in Ventura had just given her 50% custody of the 2 kids, which she would have in the summers. And now she was going to marry another guy, and he got killed in an accident. She has the baby, and they take her only baby daughter away. And we documented she had rented a really nice house close to a church in a good neighborhood, and she was working and preparing. She had a crib. She had everything for her baby girl. and they took it away from her the day after it was born, or the day of the birth. I think the name was maybe Angel Powers. And it was just a tragedy.
You know,
She was here on this show. How can it be right, Amy, that one judge can say you're fit to have 50% custody of your teenage sons or preteen sons, but now you can't even have custody of your baby daughter? Judge Garcia, shame on you. I still say shame on you, Judge Garcia. You're the one that let the CPS workers pull that one off. See, I've been doing the show
You
too
know,
long, Amy. I got a long memory. There's a lot of stuff.
A lot of stories.
A lot of stories, a lot of stuff,
stories
and
in
they're
your
all
head,
true.
Yeah. No,
I wish I was
know.
lying. I wish Paula Lopez was stone sober and the cops were just beating her up because she was a nice person and they felt like beating up
Well,
a TV
I know
anchor.
for me, I'm forever changed by this experience, William.
Say that again. People need to hear that again. Look in the camera.
I am forever changed by this experience. Me and my son, you know, my son calls it baby jail. You know, until it actually, before this happened to me, I had no knowledge of CPS, and you don't want to be in that position. You want to be empowered, you want to be educated, you want to be informed on CPS in this country.
Right. Did anything in high school prepare you for this?
No.
Did they even mention Child Protective Services to you in high school? But yet when you come out of high school, they tell you you're ready to go into the world and be a productive citizen and deal with things. Are you prepared to deal with this when you come out of high school?
No, and then that's, you know, and
So high school's a failure. High schools are failure. They do not when my grandfather graduated from high school, number one, there was no CPS, which was a good thing. Number two, when he graduated from high school back in 1890 something, he spoke Latin fluently, Greek fluently, as well as English. He grew up speaking English and learned Latin and Greek because he was planning to be a school teacher and a doctor, which he then became a school teacher and then became a doctor, a medical doctor. He was prepared. He spoke Latin and Greek. Back in the 1890s, coming out of a small town high school, and he could speak Latin and Greek. Today, kids come out of our schools, they can barely speak English properly. They don't know how to use a dictionary properly. If they can't find it on their iPod or their cell phone dictionary, they don't know how to look it up in a dictionary. They don't know what the difference between a synonym is and anything else. Mm-hmm. They have no clue. And so they're not prepared to deal with CPS, being thrown in jail. They don't even know the Constitution. They don't even know you were entitled and denied.
my right to due process.
To due process. Seventh Amendment says under common law, which they try to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they want to drag you into their kangaroo admiralty court or equity court or family court, which is just admiralty court. They want to drag you in there and say, oh, common law has nothing to do with our court. You're here in family court. No, Your Honor. I'm here as a living person of God representing the all cap name that you put on the paperwork. I'm just speaking for that false entity you put on there. I'm here in common law. I don't know where you are, Judge. Did you sign your oath of office under admiralty law? Did you sign it under the Constitution, which upholds common law? And then you go into that argument with the judge. Don't even give them jurisdiction. Don't even let them get that far. And they'll try to bulldoze you down and say, bailiff, shut her up, or, shut up, or we're going to put you in jail for contempt. And they'll do all that kind of, but contempt is a very specific thing. Contempt is not arguing with the judge. Contempt is something very specific, and there are elements to contempt. But judges just say, anytime you disagree with the judge, you're in contempt. That's not true. That's because these are kangaroo courts, and they're run by a bar card. We might as well have the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, the Moose Lodge, or the KKK run the courts. They're all private organizations. This is true, Amy. Did you know that?
Well, they're a club. Well, I actually wrote to the bar, and I received a letter back from the bar saying that they no longer punish or regulate attorneys anymore. I have an actual letter that says that regarding my complaint.
I'd like to see that letter.
Oh yeah, it's posted on my website.
Which is?
Folks, I have a website and a radio show. Can I
Yeah,
share?
go ahead, please do.
I now try to educate parents that, so before this happens to you and your children, you have some kind of knowledge. You can, it's on Saturday nights at 7 o'clock. It's called The Porthole to Justice. My host is with Tammy Stefano from the National Safe Child. And I also have a website on Facebook where I help empower and educate parents.
And the website is www.
Mama Bear Justice on Facebook.
Mama Bear Justice on Facebook. I say that right?
Yeah.
www. Mama Bear
Justice. Mama Bear Justice.
Justice.
On Facebook.
Mama Bear Justice. It's on the Facebook. So it'd be www.facebook.com/Mama Bear Justice. Thank you for sharing that with us. So now LA County opens up a case on you, and how long is it before they take Aiden from you?
Well, they took him. It was
Right from the hospital.
Right from the hospital.
After the doctor said
Yeah.
there's no abuse here.
Yeah.
And they took him anyway.
They took him anyway.
When you went into that hospital, which hospital was that?
The Grossman Burns Center.
Grossman Burns Center. Were you aware they keep CPS officers in the hospital full time just to kidnap kids?
Actually, they do. And
But were you aware of
and
it?
from my understanding, it's Grossman Burns Center. It happens quite often that the children are kidnapped.
Were you aware of it
from
when you went
there.
in there? Were you aware, Amy?
No, at the time I was not aware.
That's the question I wanted to answer. So you went into the Grossman Burns Center thinking this is the right thing to do. My son had an accident. We're going to go to the hospital. We're going to take care of it. And it actually wasn't the right thing because that's how they grabbed your kid, started
And-
your case, and they took him from you for. When they took him that night, did you think you'd get him back in a day or two like Porterville?
I had already started doing my research. I was mortified. I was decimated.
So
they
the
took
point is,
him
it's not safe to take your child
to the hospital.
To the hospital. It's not a safe environment, people. I want to say that again. Taking your child, unless he's literally on death's row, your child is literally going to die within minutes or an hour. It is not safe to take your kid to a hospital.
I would like to say this on behalf of the LA County Sheriff's Department. They did advocate for me. I cooperated thoroughly with an investigation regarding Aiden's accident. I took a lie detector test, as well as the emergency room doctor there wrote a letter saying that it was an accident. They wrote, the Sheriff's Department wrote a letter on my behalf saying that I should not have my son removed, that I cooperated fully with their investigation, and that went to the commissioner on my case, and it was withheld with all of the rest of my evidence at my trial at Edelman's Children's Court. Again, a violation of the Brady Clause.
Three cheers for the LA Sheriff's Department for doing an investigation and coming out on your side. But CPS won anyway, didn't they?
They did. They continue to keep my son in jurisdiction of the court until June 2nd of this year, which I finally got full custody, folks, of my 4-year-old son. He is 4 years old now.
And you just got custody this year?
Mm-hmm. June 2nd.
And you finally got CPS out of your hair.
Yeah.
And now you're suing the police in Porterville.
Yes, I am.
When do you go to court and where?
I go to Fresno Court on the 29th of this month.
29th of this September, 2015. Gee, I wonder if William Wagner will show up in that court with a media request and a camera. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Do you think the trial is actually going to start on the 29th?
I believe so. We're scheduled to go to trial September 29th.
Interesting.
And I'll tell you something else interesting. I have a copy of the police call log from that night, and the police had actually originally called in code 4. Code 4 means that everything is okay.
And CPS still took her child. This reminds me of the case in Oregon where Wilbur Gaskin had he got custody of his 7-year-old daughter. It's a long, long story, but make it very brief. The mother was a basket case in that case. She had 5 kids by 5 different fathers, and then they took her off to the psych ward or wherever, and that was the end of Sharon. One of the 5 children was his. He didn't know he had a child. It was a one-night stand. But he had already raised one family, and when the came knocking on his door and said, "Hey, Wilbur, you owe years of child support." He says, "Really? My kids are all grown. We didn't have child support issues." He says, "Well, you had this relationship with Sharon, and she's gone, and we got the kids, and you owe child." He says, "Well, then give me the kid. I've already raised one 5. Just give me my child." And he went and saw his little girl, Melissa. So your story ends happily, Amy, because you got Aiden back. Not all stories end happily. Wilbur was then criminalized. He got his child back after he took all the case plan, parenting classes, and he was retired by then. He was already 66. He's retired, so he takes all the classes. They didn't think he would. He finishes the classes. Oh, and he looks like Santa Claus. I forgot to tell you, Wilbur Gaskin looked like Santa Claus, and every Christmas he would put on the Santa Claus and go to the schools and hand out gifts and play Santa Claus. This guy they try to criminalize. They try to criminalize Santa Claus. So he takes all the classes. They grudgingly give him his 7-year-old daughter back, and he told me, and this is on tape, it's on my YouTube channel, she screamed for the first 6 months. Every time she had to go to sleep, she would scream. It took her 6 months to calm down and realize she was in a safe place at age 7. No one was going to bother her in her sleep. No one was going to molest her. She was now safe with her dad, her bio dad. And he has no mom involved. It's just him and her living in a 1-bedroom apartment. After 18 months, CPS has tried several things to try to get that girl away from him. All failed because he's a good dad. He's already raised one family. One day, a child tells a lie at school. The school's a mandated reporter, repeats the lie to CPS. CPS says, "Aha!" They send a policeman. They grab the little girl right outside the apartment, and she's waiting for the school bus. He never sees his daughter again till she's 15. From age 7.5, we'd got her enrolled in kindergarten, and now he doesn't see her till she's 15. Then they put him on trial because he caught the first foster mom. I'll give you her name. It's Hazel Spees of Oregon, who was a 1st grade school teacher in Oregon, someplace near St. Angel, Oregon. And she was told by Larry Lawson to make a porno film of Wilbur's little girl at age 7. And so in Hazel Spees' home, who's a 1st grade school teacher and the first foster mom, they tell this little girl to take off your clothes. Hazel Spees specifically tells her on directions of Larry Lawson, who's in charge of this operation, take off to get the girl stripped naked, masturbate herself, and say, "Daddy makes me do the dirty dance." And instead, the little girl takes off her clothes. She's dancing to the music, and Hazel's saying, "Take that off, take that off." And then you hear, I only heard an audio of part of it, the tape. And you hear Hazel saying, "Now say, Daddy makes me do the dirty dance." And she says, "Daddy don't make me do the dirty dance. You make me do the dance." Oh my God. And it's on videotape. They take that tape and they show her dancing naked and masturbating to other CPS offices around Oregon, and they try to criminalize Wilbur. And even after his criminal trial, he's found completely innocent by a jury of 5 women and 1 man. They refuse to give him his daughter back. To this day, Wilbur's still alive. He's in his late 80s. He has not got Melissa's 22, and they have so drugged her, submitted her to electroshock treatment, and I have the medical records of that in my possession.
And they're not the same.
No,
when
this girl is
they
not
do
the same.
They do not come out the same when they have that type of
No,
treatment.
when she's been
And-
treated to electroshock therapy, that came after she turned. She
So
was in high
sorry.
school her freshman year, and in her freshman year she found computer and she found her dad.
This is horrifying.
This is how bad it can go. These people are criminals.
They don't care what happens to these children. Once they place them in foster care, they don't care what happens to these children. They really
Absolutely not.
don't.
They
And
really
they will
don't.
go to any lengths to criminalize the parent.
They did, and even after Wilbur was exonerated and Pam Mazier, I think was her name, she became Wilbur's common-law wife. She was 30 years younger than Wilbur, and she started to help her. They murdered Pam. I'm telling you flat out, the people in Oregon, specifically judge in Oregon, specifically state helicopter pilot in Oregon, had Pamela murdered by dropping poison over their little hut out in the woods. And Pam died 10 days later. Wilbur was gone serving notice because they'd won a default judgment of $500 million against a CPS worker, judges, the school teacher, and a whole bunch of people. They won a $500 million judgment, and they were serving notice, we're taking your pension, we're taking your home. That's what Wilbur was doing when they dropped the poison. This really bothers me because I investigated this back in 08.
It's all
and,
very disturbing. And,
these are criminals. They're criminals in office. We need to arrest them.
We need to, as a community, we need to all work together because no longer has this organization, it's no longer a service to our communities. It is a disservice.
It's a Nazi, it's a Nazi operation. It's a totally contrary to the Constitution, and that's why I call them criminals in office. You called them, Amy, you called them criminals in office. She's right. And Amy and I did not come to that conclusion working together. She came to this, and we stumbled upon each other after we'd both come to the same conclusion, not before. Isn't that true, Amy? You came to this conclusion before you ever heard of William Wagner.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, completely independently. And thousands of Americans are doing it. But most of you Americans watching will say, oh, there must be more to the story. There must be something hidden that he's not telling us. No.
But I'd hate for,
I hope this never happens to you.
the unaffected need to be educated because, I wouldn't wish what happened to me and my son on my worst enemy.
I would. I would wish it on CPS workers. I would wish this to happen to judges, and particularly, I'm not sure Paula Lopez Ochoa should be allowed to keep her children. If she is truly, and I say if, she is truly driving drunk in the wrong direction on a one-way divided freeway, maybe she should lose not only her job at KCOY, which is just a few miles from our broadcast station here where we're broadcasting live today, maybe she should lose her children. Or maybe the judge, if she's still married to the judge, maybe he needs to do a rectification in his family. I'll leave that up to you, Judge. You figure out what you need to do. But, we have criminals. We have judges protecting the criminals. I say 3 cheers for the cop that pulled Paula over and stopped her before she had a head-on collision, killed herself and some other innocent people. That policeman should get an award. And I'm not giving out any names. I'm not saying who I talked to. But Amy, so you go through this for years, and what did you find step by step? They take Aiden. You don't know where they had Aiden for 2 years, did you?
Well, I do know where once we were we relocated to Los Angeles, Marina Del Rey. I did get visits with Aiden. I never ever missed a visit, and I did meet the foster family, and I was very fortunate that
You lucked out.
I really did. The horror stories that I've heard over the past 4 years, children dying in foster care, CPS not caring, they really don't care. My
They don't,
son
right.
suffered medical neglect while he was in foster care.
That's normal. That's typical of foster
Yeah,
care.
you know, and there was really nothing I could do. And it's the most helpless, horrible feeling when you cannot help your child.
Yeah,
you
when
know.
people literally will point guns at you to prevent you from helping your child. This is Nazi America, people. Let me say it again. This is Nazi America. Nazi America, and the Nazis wear CPS credentials, and they get cops to come with guns. And it could happen to you through no fault. You could be home cooking a chicken, and all like Amy, and all of a sudden, your child is taken from you, who was peacefully sleeping where he should have been in his home. Then cops come in. How is that any different than Nazi Germany? It's not. It's the same thing. People with guns and badges and credentials, and then they try to justify by giving her 2 drug tests, hoping she'll test dirty.
But not only did I do those initial 2 drug tests, but I also drug tested randomly twice weekly for 3.5 years.
So how did you get your kid back? Just by going through the case plan?
I finished 3 case plans, and they kept continuing to extend the 3rd case plan. Yeah. Yeah.
And you just marched to the drummer.
I marched to the drum. I told them, I said, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. That's my son. I'm not giving up. And they just kept making it harder and harder. Once they decide they do not like you, you're the targeted parent.
And the
They
dad
just-
of Aiden dropped out of this over this time? Did he drop out
He
of the
just
picture?
dropped out of the picture for 2 years, basically.
It was really
Yeah.
tough for him too, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, he came back towards the end of the case. The attorney for minor subpoenaed him into court, and they tried to, contrive visits with him that weren't really successful.
Yeah, because he'd been out of the loop too long.
Yeah.
But he did stand with you and stand up when they subpoenaed him.
No.
He didn't.
No. He's, he did the first year he had gone into CPS and he had asked the social worker, I'd like to marry the mother of my child. And they said, well, there's no way you're going to do that until this case is closed. Well, I think.
What authority do they have to tell somebody you can or cannot get married?
No, we could not live together. We could not
Couldn't
live together,
and you
we
couldn't get married.
No, because then they said they would remove Aiden again. So 3 years into it, father remarried, and he's since moved on with his life.
So the Nazi criminals at CPS literally prevented you and the father from being married happily together and raising your child. They literally said, if you do that, we're going to put more roadblocks.
We had our own issues, and we had already been separated at that point. But what I'm trying to say is that they eliminated that
Any possibility.
or having that freedom to choose.
Wow. So we have CPS now preventing people from getting married and working out their family. I think that's what happened with Jason and Cassidy. They just beat that young couple and beat them and threw them in jail until they just couldn't keep their relationship going. It was horrific. And I think these things need to happen to the people that do them to others. That's why we need to know who these people are. Because down the road, I may not live to see it because I'm old, but I think somebody needs to look up all these cases, drag these SOBs out of their comfortable pension home retirement places and put them to the fire. Make them pay. Don't leave it for God to do it. God gave you authority to do it. God didn't put you on the earth and say, now you have no authority over anything. You have no authority over the animals. You have no authority over your children. You have no authority over the criminals that destroy your children. That's not what God said. God said exactly the opposite. He said, I give you authority over all the creepy things, even the creepy criminals of CPS. You have authority. You just have to take it and stick it to them. And they need to have it stuck to them, including the judges that cover up for them. That's William Wagner's humble First Amendment opinion. While we still have a First Amendment, and I'm not sure we still do, but theoretically, we still have a constitution. It's just these Nazis break it. So you went through all 3 case plans. So you finished the first case plan.
And they had me sign another. And
But what was the
at
alternative if you
that
refused to do a
If
second
I
one?
refused, they wanted to adopt my son out. The foster parents wanted to adopt my son.
So what did you have to do in the first case plan?
I had to complete parenting classes, test twice weekly randomly.
For how long?
For drugs and alcohol.
For how long?
3.5 years.
For 3.5 years.
Yeah, and I had to go to twice a week AA meetings, complete a 6-month drug and alcohol outpatient
But alcohol
treatment
wasn't an
program.
issue for you.
No.
And drugs weren't an issue, and you still had to go to AA meetings? Oh my God.
Twice a week. For 3 years. Now, I mean, you can imagine trying to work.
Yeah, trying to hold a job. And this is what happened to, this is what happened to
It's
Powers,
just,
Miss Powers and her little baby Angel Powers. She had to quit her job. She was gainfully employed. But they wouldn't let her visit her kid in Santa Maria, where they took the kid at the Santa Maria Marian Hospital. They put the kid out in Lompoc, and she would have to take a bus.
And they do that on purpose.
Yeah.
They do that on purpose. I lived in Los Angeles.
Tell us.
And they moved my son with a family in Palmdale, Lancaster. I drove an hour and 45 minutes each way, twice, sometimes 2 times a week or more, to see my son. And I never missed a visit.
You know, I can relate to that.
But
I
they-
had 2 boys by a woman who is dead now. She literally smoked cigarettes and killed herself with cancer, but she got custody of my 2 kids. And I had to go 2,600 miles one way for every time I visited my kids. 5,000-mile round trips, and I did it for 6, 7, 8 years every 3 months. And they would still try to criminalize me. They would still say, oh, you're 5 minutes late, you don't get to see your kids. Or you didn't pay the guy that's supposed to supervise your visit, so you can't see your kids.
That's another thing that's going on. They're frauding the supervisors are frauding the parents as well, with the charging them to see their children.
Charging you money to see your own children when you're already paying child support. You're already going through a case plan. And, you know, they did the same thing to me, only I had to go 5,000 miles round trip. Well, I had other kids growing up at home, and finally one day I only stopped.
And you know, I want to say, I completed 3 as the targeted parent, and this happens to males and females. This is not exclusively.
Well, you were targeted, Amy, because you fought.
Yeah, it used to be. It used to be that in the past, but now it's like if you're the targeted parent, there's no switching. Aiden's father, for 2 years, children's court, he didn't appear in court. He didn't come to the court hearings. He never completed his case
he bowed
plan.
out. He bowed out.
But at the end of our case, they wanted to allow him.
Only to use him against you.
Yes.
Only to use him against you, they would bring him back in.
Yes.
And this is my point. These people will never admit their criminality. The gal, Sally Schofield is in prison to this day, and they're trying to get her out. She murdered Logan Marr, a little 5 or 6 year old girl. Murdered her, tape ducked her to death, and put her in a damp, dark, cold basement because she was crying and she wanted to go home to mommy or grandma. And they wouldn't let her go to grandma because grandma hadn't been certified okay. But they gave her to this ex-CPS worker, an ex-CPS worker who also wasn't okay, and she murdered little Logan. This is crazy stuff, but it's happening.
This is not okay. This stuff is not okay. And you know, we have this non-alienation pause, it's called, where they deviate these criminals from domestic violence court, and these criminals are getting custody of the kids. The kids are ending up dead.
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Over 2 children were killed. I don't remember, it was the year before last year or the year before that. 2 kids died in Santa Barbara County that were in the system, and to this day the parents don't know it. The parents that lost their kids don't know their child died in Santa Barbara and will never know it because they seal their case. I'm not allowed to tell you their names. Down in LA County, over 100 children disappeared out of the system. Another 120
And
were
they're
found
not
dead.
required to report that,
And
William.
they're not required to report it.
Because they're in foster care.
Because they're in foster care, so they don't report the murder of these children. And I think of this little black boy up in Oregon. I talked to somebody connected to him biologically. This kid was drugged to death by a doctor. Because he would cry and say, I want to go home, I want to see mommy, I want to go home. Well, your mom's in drug dependency, you can't go see her. But they then forced drugs into the little boy, and nobody was monitoring the buildup of this certain drug in his system. Nobody was monitoring. They just give him more until he was drooling. And then the witnesses I talked to said one day he just drooled and just clipped over and died. And then they shredded his file up there in Salem, Oregon. They shredded his file. His mother was put in jail and criminalized for more than what she was guilty of. The father disappeared. The grandmother wanted to save the kid and couldn't. She just didn't have the know-how. She was an elderly black woman of failing health, and she didn't know how to save her grandchild. And little Johnny, you know, I never mentioned him before, but it bugs me because I was up there in '08 documenting so many cases. And I felt grateful because at least my two sons, they made it to manhood. They're now 23 and 22.
Okay.
And I don't see them. They don't call me. They don't know I love them and I care about them because their mother and the system alienated them from me. They don't know I did 5,000-mile trips just to spend a week with them in a hotel.
Well,
They don't know any of that. All they know is Daddy dropped out of the picture when they were about 12.
Yeah.
Because I hated seeing what they were doing to him. I couldn't, you know, you reach a point where you're going to kill somebody.
You're doing the show, and it's wonderful. I commend you
Well,
for
thank
what
you,
you're
Amy.
doing, William.
Thank you. Oh, that's just part of the
Let's
reason
see.
I keep doing these issues. It's not the only issue I do. So you finished the first case plan, and now they say you got to do another case plan.
Another case plan.
Because you successfully finished the first one, so they
Yeah.
figure we'll give you another. The second one, they make it a little tougher, huh?
Well, you know, to redo the drug and alcohol patient treatment, and yeah, I ended up doing 3 case plans. They extended the third one.
Hoping you would fail. Hoping
Yeah,
you would.
but this year, June 2nd, my case is closed. I have full custody of my son.
I think you should
He's
sue him.
happy. He's healthy, and
I'm glad Aiden's healthy and he's here with you and he looked fine to me. Well, that's our. Hi, Aiden. We're almost done. Aiden's watching us in the green room. Hi, Aiden. Yeah, we're right here. Mom's right here. You're going to go home with your mom. Everything's fine, cool. But I think you ought to sue them for making you go through three case plan is exorbitantly excessive.
well, I'm working very hard to educate parents,
And that's a good thing. And your website again is
Is,
Facebook,
It's on Facebook, Mama Bear Justice.
mamabear.justice. And with that,
Yeah.
I thank you, Amy.
You're so welcome, William.
Did you
Thank
get everything
you.
said you wanted to get said?
I think so.
We're going to go and show you a clip of the Michael Jackson event that was for kids in Gary, Indiana, put on by Katherine Jackson and the Jackson family. Michael may be gone, but his legacy lives on, and I was there to document this in Gary, Indiana on the 21st, 22nd. See you next week. I'm William Wagner saying thanks for watching.
this next song. It's called